And the big question many are now wondering is how close are we to finding a solution to the outbreak, and how long can this go on for? Joining us now is the person leading the charge to try to find a solution here in the U.S., Dr. Andre Khalil from the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Dr. Khalil, first off, I know you're busy, so thank you for taking the time to speak to us.
Thanks for having me.
How far along are we in developing a drug to treat COVID-19?
So we decided to take a little bit of a different approach this time. We designed the clinical trial to be available to different drugs. So the trial that we designed with the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, is a trial that will be what we call randomized adaptive trials. So the trial will be able to test several different drugs sequentially. The first drug that we're going to test is remdesivir. So this is the medication that has already a track record of a viral replication inhibition. So we looked into in vitro and animal studies and found that this medication has this ability to inhibit the viral replication. So the idea here is to test this medication as the first one in the trial. So half of the patients will receive remdesivir and the other half is going to receive the placebo. And the idea here is to run this trial as fast as possible to find if this medication works. If this medication works, we're gonna work in what's called an adaptive process. The medication will be transferred to the control arm, and we're going to bring a new medication and test a second medication, and then we can test a third medication, so forth. So the idea here is to have this clinical trial running as long as possible. We have now a plan to run for at least 3 years, and we're going to test multiple drugs. Hopefully, we're going to find one or more therapies that can just improve the clinical symptoms and the survival of these patients with severe COVID-19. Very important to mention that the trial really is focused on the patients with a moderate and severe disease. As you know, 80 to 90% of the patients today will have just a mild disease. They will basically get cured just on their own. They will not need any specific medications. The focus of this clinical trial is to try to help the people that need the most, the people that are going to have the severe disease, the disease that affect the lungs and can cause pneumonia. So
what can you tell us about the participants in this trial as well as the coronavirus patients that you're already treating?
So I cannot tell you any specifics about the first patient enrolled in the trial, but I can tell you that the patient it keeps improving and actually was discharged from the biocontainment unit back to the quarantine yesterday. So meaning that the patient really had a significant improvement being the clinical trial. As I mentioned before, is a randomized trial, double-blind, so we don't know which medication, if the patient received the placebo or the active drug, but the patient improved and the patient was discharged from the hospital. We have other 14 patients that are in the quarantine. That means they do not require to be admitted to the hospital because they don't have any severe disease. They all have mild disease. So at this point, patients are doing well. They're improving. But we are observing very carefully because what we've noticed with this infection that sometimes it takes about a week and a half for the disease progress and get into the lungs and cause pneumonia. So we have to keep very close attention to each one of these patients.
That's good to know. And I know that your facility also dealt with the Ebola virus outbreak in 2014. So far, how does your experience with these two scenarios compare?
I think they compare differently, but we learned so much in 2014 through both the clinical aspects and research aspects. For instance, the trial that we have now, the clinical trial that we have now, is basically is being built on what we learned with the trials that we did during the Ebola outbreak. So we are much better doing this type of research nowadays, trying to bring new therapies because we are learning on the time that we went through the 2004 outbreak. So definitely it's a learning curve, but the lessons we learned in 2014 are definitely being very useful for what's happening today.
All right, Dr. Andre Khalil from the University of Nebraska Medical Center. We appreciate your time, doctor, as well as the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.